Good afternoon, everyone, and you are mostly welcome to today's lecture. In today's tutorial, we'll be looking briefly, we'll be continuing on our past session, which was web application security, right? And I believe that you've gone through the session one or to the last session we had, which was session 4. So, as I said earlier in our last class, that everything that we'll be doing subsequently will be built or build upon the past lecture. So you can't afford to leave any gap in any of your learning. So in today's lecture, let me open up my slide. So we'll be looking at uh, web application security, as I said earlier. So what we shall be covering in today's session, we'll be looking at SQL, what is SQL. We'll be diving deeply, briefly rather, into SQL crash course, which is, getting us to know what SQL stands for and the purpose of SQL. So we'll be looking at how to use SQL to bypass authentication on web application, which is known as SQL injection. We'll be looking at how to use the SQL injection to dump database data, right? Database information such as maybe credit cards, CCV, the 3 number at the back of cards, how to dump database information such as username and password. And also will be, uh, the final scope of today's session will be on SQL map, which is a tool that we can use to automate all this process of finding SQL vulnerability in web application. I'll be walking us through manual method of finding that vulnerability, while it is good also to in web penetration testing or in hacking generally. It is good that we save time, right? So there are tools that have been built by the community to help us automate the task of finding the vulnerability in web application, and at the same time, you know, uh, and at the same time, exploiting the vulnerability. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, what is SQL? As you can see before you, SQL stands for Structured Query Language, which is a standardized programming language that is used to manage relational databases and perform various operations on the data in them. So, as you know, that this is a bootcamp on cybersecurity and not programming language. And you may be wondering that why are we discussing about SQL here? SQL, actually, as it is being said, is a structured query language. Last week, in our last session, we were talking about web application, how web application communicates, right? There is a need for a client, client web application. We define our web application in 2 ways, right? There is a client side web application, web app, and there is a server side. And the way you access web application is through your browser. For example, facebook.com, right? When you type facebook.com into your browser, it communicates, with the web app on the web server somewhere on the internet, right? So also, when you are registering newly on that service such as facebook.com, they will demand you that you insert your username, password, and all those details they collect, which is known as PII, personal identifiable information. All those things, there's a database that they are keeping all those information, right? And one of the database, which is known as RDBM, Relational Database Management System. One of such is MySQL. We have Oracle. We have Redis database. But the language that is being used to communicate with the server, for example, when you log into Facebook.com, right? You insert your username and password. Facebook had to confirm that you are actually, who you say you are, the information you provided. Maybe in my own example, I can use team@gmail.com and insert password 12345, right? Facebook they have to first of all confirm whether I am the right person that owns the account. So where there is a database, as I said earlier, where those information are being kept. So you don't have to, there is an algorithm that perform those things behind, whereby you can see it. So it will quickly perform the logic, right, and hash your credentials and confirm it to the database. If it is correct, they allow you access. If it is not correct, that's why you will see incorrect password, incorrect username. So why am I saying this? To let you know that there is a database at the back end of the server, and the language that that server used to communicate with the database is known as SQL, Structured Query Language. So let me proceed. In this course, it is important that we understand, how SQL works, how you can create tables, write into tables, how we can filters and advanced queries, and all those things. For we to know how to properly hack web application, you must know the system for you to be able to hack it. If you don't know it, there is no way you can hack it. Don't forget, the objective of this course is to hack legally, which is known as ethical hacking, right? So everything that we'll be learning on this in today's tutorial, of course, as I've informed us earlier, that we should download a vulnerable web server, and I believe by now that each and every one of us have downloaded that, which is made vulnerable for the purpose of testing, right? Don't do this on any website out there if you are not authorized to perform everything you'll be learning in today's lecture. That is unethical, and you may be sanctioned, right, for that. So let me dive let me open my browser now and see, as I've said, what we'll be doing now is to know how to write a SQL language. So as I said earlier, it's not a programming course, right? I'm just giving us a crash course, a basic understanding of how SQL works. So in this case, we'll be using an online service. You don't have to download any, any code, code platform on your system. There's an online platform we are going to use, which is SQL Online. Just open up your browser and go to this site. This is where we'll be performing our, so this is the site. So you can see before you, this is what database actually look like. It's it's just like an Excel. If you have seen an Excel sheet before, as you can see, we have 3 columns: ID, we have name, we have int. This is a what is it called? The site has already done this by itself. So what we are going to be doing here in this SQL crash course is to be able to replicate this. So we are going to be doing that. As you can see, we have ID, we have name, we have int, right? As you can see, the table name is demo. So right now, what we are going to first do is to create our table, right? We are going to create a new table to perform the test we'll be doing here. So to do that, just follow this. This is a query language that I'm typing. Create if not exist. So I'm going to name that table test. This is the test, right? So you will open a parenthesis here, and as you can see, we have ID here. I'm also going to, but in this case, I won't be using int. I will be creating a table that we have a column names of ID, name, and age. So I will put ID. So you can see here that it starts from 3, 4, 5, 6, right? There is a what is it called? There is a language, or there is a special function that by which we can use that whenever we insert into a table. It will automatically start from 1, 2, 3 instead of manually saying ID 1, ID 2. No, which is known as, first of all, before we do that, because our ID will be in numbers. If you are familiar with programming, it is known as integer. right? Numbers is known as integer in programming. So integer, I'm going to write integer here. And as I've said earlier, to automatically update the number for us, there is a special function known as primary key, right? Primary key. So comma, you will insert comma, and the next column name that we are going to be using is name. And name, you know that it will be taken for as a string. It is known as string in programming language. String are just alphabetical numbers, right? So in this case, we have to, the way we specialize ID to be integer, which is number, we also have to specialize name, which will be in, but in SQL, if you are familiar with Python, in Python they call it string, but in SQL, it is also being pronounced by SQL, right? It is known as varchar, varchar, yes, as you can see, varchar. So also that is that, and I'm going to be creating another heading, which is age, right? Age also will, it will be in numbers, which is integer. So you close the parentheses, and this, what is it called, this column. As you can see, it is important that we insert it in programming language like Python. You don't need all this, but SQL, we must put this. If you are familiar with any programming language, you know that, for example, in Java, I think in Java too, you have to put this column here. So what I'm going to do now is to run this. This is where you will click run. So it's complaining that we are having an error. It's saying, let me click the run again. He said near if. Okay, let me go back to it again. Create a table. Create table. I made a mistake. You see, create table if not exist, and the name of the table we are creating is test. The one that has been created before is demo, as you can see before you. Now I'm going to rerun it. You can see that it has created the table, right? So we've successfully created a table that had let me delete this. It's important that I take a note. Before I do that, let me open Notepad so that I can be copying the commands, so that I won't be having to retype again. So what I'm going to do here is to just cut this, and hold on please. So and paste it into my Notepad. So you'll be taking notes as you are going along with this lecture. So what I'm going to do now is to query this test, table test, right? So what I'm going to do now, select means, as it being said, select, bring from, and this point, this star that you are seeing in programming language is known as all. Star means everything. Select everything from test, right? So let me run it. As you can see, it's not displaying, it's not showing anything, because why? I haven't insert into test. As you can see, this is my test table. It has ID, it has name and age, and it's not showing any information at the moment because I haven't insert into it. So what I'm going to do now is to insert data into my ID, into my name, into age. So to do that, just follow this command, insert into, as he said, it's the English, it's the words are so explanatory. I don't have to further break it down. Insert means insert into, and the next argument we are going to give is the table that we want to insert into, which is insert into test. That is the name of the table, right? So what I'm going to do here now is open a parenthesis, insert into test, the value of name, which is this name that we are seeing, the name column, right? And comma, the value of age. That is the value I want to insert, right? So the next, so those are the columns I want to insert into. So we are going to specify the values. Values, there's a function for values. You open a parenthesis. Also under name, I'm going to use my name. I'm going to use green. That is my surname, right? Comma, and age. As I've said before, age is a number, right? If you should put it in string, as you can see that I put a two string here, right? it is important. If you just write your name without this string, you will get an error. So it must be inserted into these two strings. So what I'm going to do next is H. I'm just going to write 35. As you can see, I didn't insert that into string because it's a number, right? So close the bracket and put that. Let me run it again. As you can see, it has successfully run, but it's not showing. But to show, before I cancel this, let me cut this and paste it into this my notes taking part. So what I'm going to do now is to query the database again. So I'm going to say select everything from test, right? So let me run that. As you can see, we have ID, which is 1. We have name. We have under name, we have green. Under age, we have 35. Can you see that? So we have successfully inserted a data or information into our table test we created. So let me just replicate. Let me do that. Let me insert more data into it. So I'm just going to change this. I will change it to a team and give the age of 25. Change this also to Tokwe, right? And give the age of 15. Change this to any name. Let me use Olumide, right? And give the age of 40 and change this to Sheyi, right? And give the age of 10. And last, change this to Brown and give the age of 14 or 15. So let me run it again. So for us to see the data, right, what I'm going to do now is to select everything from test, right? So and click run. As you can see, it has add more data into our table. We now have up to 7 ID. We have green, green 35. It repeated this. We have team, we have Tokwe, we have Olumide, we have Sheyi and Brown. So we have successfully created a table and we have successfully inserted into the table. So let's look at our next agenda is to filtering, right? We want to filter, how to use a filtering command such as like as you get to see. Let me go back to my to the Chrome. So for example, now let's say I want to select based on ID and not, this command, what it's doing is that is displaying all the information on this particular database. Select everything from test. But if in the case that I just want to see the information by ID, right? So what I can do is that select everything from test where ID equal to what? Let's say ID equal to 7, right? You see that ID is an integer. That's why I didn't put quotation mark here, right? So if it is a name that we are giving, it must be stringed. String means that quotation mark must be given, right? So what I'm going to do now is run it. You can see we are filtering based on the command that was given. Select everything from test where ID is equal to 7. The 7, as you can see, the name under 7 is Brown and the age is 15, right? So what I also can do is to select based on name, where name is, let's say Olumide now, right? So let me run that again. As you can see, it has an ID of 5, where name is Olumide and age is 40, right? So, and what I can also do is that, I think, I'm just giving a crash course on SQL. That is not the focus of our subject today, but it's important that you have the knowledge, a basic understanding of the language. So what I'm going to do now, let's look at our next, which is advanced queries, right? We'll be doing an advanced query here, so which is so important. Let me go back to my web. So as you can see, we have 2 tables here. On that table, you can see we have demo and test. Demo was the table that was created. If you should go to this site now, this demo has been created for you. You can see. So test is the table name that we just created by ourselves, right? So, and under demo, you can see that, let me go to demo. Let me select everything that is under demo. Select everything from demo, right? Uh, so let me run it. You can see it has 3 columns, 3 headers, ID, it has name, and it has int, right? So for example now, you can see that the data are secluded from one another, right? But there is a command by which you can use to combine both the data in demo and test together, which is known as union. You can say select everything from demo, union, select everything again from test. I hope you can understand. So let me run it again. You can see now it selects the what is it called, the 2 tables. It combined them together, but here you can see, let's sort it out. It is having an ID of ID1, ID, ID1, ID1, ID2, ID2, 33. So that means that it is selecting the data together. It is combining the data together. As you can see, we have ints. The reason why it is using the header for the first demo is because it is demo that we put first, right? If I should put test here and put demo here, you will see that the column name will change. You can see now that it has age, it has ID, it has name and age, right? So it's combined the data together. This is important. Why are we looking into this? It is important. For example, when an hacker, right, get hold of a database, it has gotten into the database, this command is important to combine all the information, all the data that is being stored on that database together for sorting. Now we have a challenge because this particular union, right, there is a, what is it called, there is a parameter or there is a condition that it must meet for it to functionally work as expected, for it to work as expected. If the headers, this column name, you can see that ID, name and age, and the column numbers for demo and test, they are equal, right? That is why it is working. For example now, it's because we are making a test here. Just imagine that we got into a database and we don't know the numbers of column that is there, and we are trying to use this command. We are going to get an error. So for that sake, let me quickly create another table that we have 4 columns, 4 column names, right? So I will say create table if not exist, create table if not exist. I will call it test2, right? And I'm going to open a parenthesis here. I'm going to give it a 4. First of all, I will give it an ID, which is integer primary key. And I know I believe that you understand the meaning of primary key. It's just to help us, automatically increase the number based on the information instead of trying to say ID1, ID2. But primary key, what it will do is that it will increase it by itself. So primary key, I'm going to give a name, right, which is a varchar in this case. It is a string, right? I'm going to give a surname. In this case also is a string, which is a varchar, and I'm going to give an age, right, which is an integer. So that's all. So let me run that. So it has successfully created the test2, as you can see from here. What I'm going to do now is cut this off and let me insert into that test2 some data. Insert into test2. We have 4 headings now. I have name, surname, comma, and what is it called? And age. So I'm going to give the values for those. I'm going to say name will be, let's say, name will be Emmanuel, right? Comma, surname will be Olu, any name, right? Olu, and age will be in number, let's say 15, right? So I'm going to copy this and try to replicate this. No, sorry. So what I'm going to do here is to just change the name. I will use Gbemi here. So I'm just I will use Yinka or something like that, right? I will use Stephen here, and I will use uh, George. So I'm going to just change the age. I will say 25 and 35. So to do that, I'm just going to select inside the command to select so that everything can runs at the same time. Select everything from test 2. So let me run that. As you can see, we have created another table known as test 2 where it has 4 columns: ID, name, surname, and age. Right. So why are we doing this? Test. Let me delete all of this and select again. Select everything from test. Right. Let me run that. So you can see that test adds 3 columns and the test 2 has what's it called 4 columns. So let me now use union command to select everything from from test union select everything from test 2. Let's see what it is going to give. Run. As you can see, it said select to the left and right of union do not have the same number of result columns. As I've said earlier, the condition that must be met for union to work, the numbers of columns must be, must be the same. So there is a way out to solve this, which I'm going to go into briefly. To do that, we are just going to be guessing, which is the next. Let me go back to my slide. As you can see, guessing. We are just going to be guessing. So let me go back to my web again. Before that, let me check. All right. So let me go back to my web again. So you can see here, select everything from test, select. So we got an error. So what I'm going to just do is to just put, uh, uh, you know, okay, let me go back. No one is requesting an access. So we are just going to be guessing to the number for, because this, we know that it's because we are using as an example, as a test. That's why we could know that test 1 and test 2 has different numbers of columns. Just imagine that you are a country, you are hacking into a database. Of course, you won't know the names of the headings, the what is it called, but in this case, as an hacker, you can quickly guess, because most of the database some people create, either they use username, user password, all those things, right? So I'm just going to be guessing username, password, and let me run that. Of course, it's going to give an error, right? It said no such column or user. You can see no such column username. So because we know the name of the column that is there, for the sake of time, let me quickly go to that, which is name. Right, we have name. Let me run that again. It says select to the left and right. In this case, we have a name. We have a column that is called name, but it is still saying that the numbers, because in test 1 we have 3 columns, in test 2 we have 4 columns, and the condition that must be met for union to work is that the columns must be the same. So of course we have name. We are going to be guessing, and let me say ID. Let me run that again. It's still complaining. So let me go back to that again. So in this case, I'm just going to be using the same column and run that again. You can see now. I hope you can see that. Let me do that again. Let me run it. So it complains when I use 2 name. But let me put the third name here. That is where we got the results. You can see. As you can see from here, we can now be able to deduce, right, or make union function to work properly by guessing. At this point in time, I didn't know. I'm just imagining that I didn't know the number of columns that is being used on that database. But as an hacker, as a web application tester, this is what you must do. You must use your insights, right? You must be creative. That is the word. We must be creative in this sense that we must try to guess the numbers of columns that may be used on that particular database. As you can see, for us, we are able to get that it is guess that it is 3 columns that is being used. So let's now diverge or bring something out of the information that is before. You can see now that we have an ID, we have name and age, and you'll be wondering, where is the second test? As you saw earlier, test has 4 columns, and test 2 has 4 columns, and test has just 1 column. So it is actually displaying. The reason why it is displaying the 3 column here is because test, you can see, select everything from test, is because test is preceding test 2. That is why it's showing the 4 columns. If I should change it now, it will display the 4 columns. Let me change it for you to see. I will just put test 2 here and put test here so that you can see. Let me run it again. No, it's still saying you do not have the same number of columns, and that means we have to make it a name. I'm going to add a name to it and run it. You can see that it is now showing. The reason why it was working for test 1 year before it was because it has a 3 columns, and now when I change it test 2, I had to add another column which is name, which is test 2. You know that it has 4 columns, so that is why it is now displaying ID, name, username, surname, and age. As you can see, Ima, Olu, and 15, they are under what? They are under this test, right? So this is just to give us a basic understanding of SQL, because as I said in our last session we had, I show us OWASP top 10. One of the vulnerability that is widely being used by a malicious hacker to breach into or to compromise any web server is known as, one of the top vulnerability actually is known as SQL vulnerability, SQL vulnerability. So in this course, as I said earlier, I'll be giving us how to hack into a web server and dump information. So it is important that we have the basic understanding of SQL. So at this point in time, I'm going to draw the curtain on SQL and go back to the main focus of today's lecture. Let me bring up my PowerPoint. So we've been able to deal with SQL crash course. The next agenda is to practice. It has come to practical time. So we are going to be using Metasploitable 2 as our target machine to practice SQLi. SQLi stands for SQL injection. So we'll be using Kali Linux as an attacker machine. As I said, I've instructed you guys that you should go ahead and download Metasploitable 2 before today's session. So I believe by now you should have get all that up and running on your system. So, and I believe also that you've installed Kali Linux on your machine. So without further ado, let me go back. Let me bring up my app here. As you can see, this is I've already started my Metasploitable 2. This is my Metasploitable 2 before you. Let me bring this down so that this is my Metasploitable 2. As you can see, let me clear the screen and do if config. You can see that if config under Ethernet 0, ETA 0 that you can see here, I'm having an IP address of 10.0.2.4, right? So let me bring up my Kali Linux machine also, the attacker machine. Let me quickly log in. So as you can see, let me bring up my IP address, and the command to do that is if config. As you can see, under ETA 0, I am having .0.2.15. What are you noticing? If you can notice from the Metasploitable 2 and Kali Linux machine, they are on the same network, right? So for my machine to communicate, to access the web server of Metasploitable 2, they must be on the same network. So if you haven't done that, let me go back now to VirtualBox. As you can see, VirtualBox, let me first of all start with Kali Linux. Under settings, if we click on settings, go to network, you can see I'm using a NAT network. NAT network. You may be using a bridge adapter. If you are using a bridge adapter, you must make sure that Metasploitable 2 also is, if it is a NAT network you are using, right, which is good, you must come to this advanced and make sure that under promiscuous mode you allow VMS. Otherwise, Kali Linux will not be able to communicate with that Metasploitable 2. You must make sure that you allow VMS if it is NAT network you are using. But if it is a bridge net adapter, you don't have to do that. Bridge adapter, what that means is that it will be sharing an IP address of your Wi-Fi. If you are connected to a Wi-Fi or your home router, it will be sharing that network together with it. But I'm using a NAT network here, right? That is why I have to allow VMS. So that is that. And if you let me show the settings under Metasploitable 2 too. So come to network under advanced. You can see that it's under NAT network, and under promiscuous mode I have allowed VMS, and and do all of those. So I just want to show you that so that you won't be having an error connecting the two machines together. That is that. So let me clear my screen. So let me go back to my Metasploitable 2. As I've said, Metasploitable 2 is a web server, right? It is just like that Facebook.com, but this is being made for a practical purpose, for a educational purpose such as this. So I'm going to access the web server, the application server that is running on this Metasploitable 2. Just copy the IP address of this. In your own case, it may not be 10.0.10.0.2.4. It is because I am using a NAT network. That is why I'm having a 10.0.2.4. If you are using a what is it called, the other network I said earlier, bridge adapter, it will be 192. It will start from 192.168, right? So if it is that you are connecting to, just copy that IP address and come back to Kali Linux and type it into your web browser. Just fire up your, either it is Firefox or Chrome, right? So as you can see, this is a Metasploitable 2. So the web application we are going to be starting our hacking from is Multiliday. Let me open that. As you can see, it's just a normal web application, right? Like Facebook.com, like any other application that runs on the internet. It's the same, right? But as I've said, this is made for an educational purpose only. So let me show you the agenda so that we can be on the same page. What we are going to be doing is to machine to practice SQLi injection, right? So first of all, we are going to be looking how to let me go back now. How to log in into a web application, how to bypass login authentication, right? So you come to this OWASP top 10. You can see we have injection. We'll be dealing only about injection in this session. So I will go to under injection, go to SQLi, extract data. Before going to that, I'm going to go to bypass authentication. As you can see, bypass authentication. So let me go back. Under injection, bypass authentication and login. Click on this login. So for example, just imagine that when you want to log into Facebook, of course, they will ask you something like this, that your name and your password, right? Yes. So of course, I don't have any account here. If you haven't created any account on Facebook too, there's no way you can log in. You must first of all create an account. So let me try to log in and see the error it is going to give. Let me just use cyber as my name and 12345. Sorry, 12345 as my password. Login. Before that, let me I talked briefly about Bob suits in our last session. So let me put this down so that it won't be intercepting my traffic. You can see here he's saying that now the reason why you are seeing this information in most what's it called, application out there, you won't be seeing all this information, all this error information, right? Because as I said earlier, this particular machine is made for educational purpose and for learning, right? All those live applications like facebook.com, they can't be giving you such information, because such information is a treasure to an hacker, right? So you won't be seeing all this information, but for this purpose of learning, they are giving us information to actually know what is happening and to know how to go about it. So you can see it said failure is always an option. This situation proves it. So what he's saying here is that I don't have an account. So for me to do that, I must first, he's saying please register here. So my username will be, as I said, I will be using cyber, my password 12345, confirm password 12345. Signature, you can just use, I'm just going to use cyber green, right? So that is my signature. I'm going to create an account. At the same time, you can see that it's still giving an error. Why? Why? He said failure is not always an option. On that message, we just dealt about SQL injection, and we saw how we can use, what SQL is meant for. It is a database language. Whenever you are creating an application, just as I did now, it is that SQL that will be writing that your information to the database. As you can see, it said error in certain records. Table metasploit.account doesn't exist, right? This error is not from this Kali, but we are going to resolve this error. I'm going to go back to my Metasploit table 2 machine. As you can see, I'm inside Metasploit table 2. I'm going to clear the screen, right? So what I'm going to do is just follow this command. You may not be familiar, and if you are familiar with command line, which is good, but I will be pronouncing the command for the sake of so that you can see. Of course, if you can see my screen too, you'll be able to see it. So what I'm going to do now is to type cd. Cd means change directory into var, right? So I'm going to do ls. Ls means list the content. You can see www, right? I'm going to cd into that, cdww, right? And I'm going to ls again, and you can see we have multi-day. Where I'm going to do some configuration is under multi-day. I'm going to do cd into multi-day, right? So I'm going to do ls again. The configuration file we want to configure is config.inc, right? To do that, I'm going to type sudo nano. Nano is a text editor, right? Sudo nano config.inc. So it's asking me for password, right? And if you have logged in, sorry, I didn't mention that earlier. For you to log in into Metasploit table 2, the default password, the default credentials, the username is msf admin. The password also is msf admin. So I'm going to type the password there, which is msf admin. So you can see here, the file you have to be careful here. The file you are going to configure here is db name. As you can see, db name is in Metasploit. We are going to change this to OWASP 10. Let me first delete Metasploit. I'm going to change this to OWASP, OWASP and 10, right? And after that, press Ctrl O and press enter, right? Ctrl enter, and after that, press Ctrl X to get out of that, and you can use your clear the screen. So I'm going to go back to my attacker machine, which is Kali Linux. So I'm going to try and create an account again. In this case, I'm going to use cyber again, password 12345, 12345, signature to use cyber green. So let me continue and create accounts. We have successfully account created for cyber. You can see we have successfully created an account. Now, it is normal. What we are trying to do here is to bypass authentication, and we are going to be using SQL to do that, to bypass authentication, right? Now let me go back to login. You can see from here, he's saying here not login, right? I'm going to go back to login. So it's asking me for name. Of course, normal, I've created my account. The normal way to access this account is to insert my correct username and my correct password, which I'm going to do first, right? It has given me an access, as you can see, under user here, cyber and cyber green. But as an hacker, right? I want to bypass this authentication. I do not want to insert my username. I do not want to insert my password. In fact, as we're going to see, we are going to even log in as another user, right? So let me log out and bring that in. So as name, you know, when I thought, let's see, let me generate an error first so that we can see what I'm saying. It's saying authentication error, bad username or password, right? Let me still do that. I want to generate an error that will explain further. Now you can see, let me go back, let me scroll up. You can see it's saying here that error executing query. You have an error in your SQL syntax. Check the manual that corresponds to your MySQL Server version for the right syntax to use near at line. Now look at under diagnostic, it should be diagnostic information. You are seeing here that select, as we learned from earlier session on SQL crash course, what it's trying to do is that select everything, that star means everything from account. That account is the database name where username is cyber. Can you see? And password, the password that I inserted is just a comma, what is it called? It's a single string, a single string. That is why it's generating an error. It's saying that that error cannot, is not known. Now, what does that mean? We are going to be using that to hack, right? So let me go back to it again and do cyber as my username, and just let me use one and comma. Let me still do that. I still want to generate that error for you to see clearly what it's trying to say. Now you can see it's saying select from account. That account is a database name where username is cyber and password is one. And you know that the password that I use is 12345, right? Now, so you can see that under this password, it's inserting the value for password in two single quotes, right? You can see these two single quotes is inserting the value of the password in it, and there is an extra quote which I deliberately put for me to get this error that is given, right? So what I'm going to do next now in SQL language, you can do your further research, but I won't deviate from this. In SQL language, in every programming language, there is something they call comments. In Python, it is an hash symbol, pound symbol, right? Let me type it here so that you can see. This is what they call comments. Whenever a computer sees this, what it translates to mean is that do not run everything that is after it. And this is one of the code we'll be using to bypass this authentication. So I'm going to still use the same username, cyber. And what I'm going to do here is for me to see, I'm still going to generate that error so that we can learn what it's trying to do. I'm going to put one, comma, and hash, pound symbol. Let's see what it's going to see. It's still giving that. Let me one login. So at this point, let me now go back and log in into the account. I'm using cyber, right? But the password that I'm going to use for you to see, let me open a notepad here so that you can be seeing what I'm typing. Hold on, please. Let me go back to. So in Kali Linux, there is a notepad, but in this case, it's called mousepad. If you can type mousepad, you can see here. So I'll be taking some notes here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do let's learn. Let me go back to that. The error that it was generating before. Let me copy the error out so that we can see what it's trying to do. So let me paste it here. What it's trying to do is select everything from account where username is cyber and password is one, right? And we are inserting this, the last quote that is here. I deliberately inserted that. That is why it's giving that error. So what I'm going to do now is I will just say, instead of, we are inserting into a password parameter now. Parameter means that boss. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to say cyber username. Let me make it clear. username, I'm going to be using cyber. For password now, this is the thing I'm going to be using. Instead of saying, I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Instead of that, that is my correct password. I will just say this, and you can see this and that is given. Oh, he said, you know what and means, where username is cyber and password is 1. I'm still going to use and 1 equal to 1. So this comment that I've said earlier, which is an hash, let's try and run this. Let's try and run this. Copy. Guess what is going to give us. So I'm going to insert this. Now we've logged in. You can see cyber. I've logged in without the password. You may be wondering, I'm still going to change the password. Of course, I use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here as the password, but let me just use any letter because that is my correct password I use in creating the accounts. So let me copy this. You know, you can see I'm using Q here now. Copy, and I'm going to log out again. I'm going to log out. So cyber and login. So it's still saying the password is incorrect. So cyber, what I'm going to do now is comma, or let me type that out. Let me use this. Is it that we use hash or that double what is it called now? So it's still complaining. Now let's see the error is complaining about. It said select all from accounts where username is cyber and password is equal to Q. And as you can see, right, instead of using and password equal to Q. So normally wherever I see this thing, wherever I see this, which is synonymous to comment, it will not run everything that is after it. I hope you are understanding. It will not run everything that is after this thing. So let me go back now and make, instead of using and, I can use or. Q or 1 equal to 1. And what does that mean? Let me run that and see. Cyber and this. So it's still generating that error again. So instead of using this, let me use that hash symbol. So in real world penetration testing, you just have to be guessing. Of course, if you open your web browser and type payload, SQL payload, SQL payload. So let that be loading. Let me go back to, let me just paste this in. And as you can see, with the second command, I've been able to log in as an admin. Right? I've been able to bypass the authentication. So let me show you. You can open inspect element. If you are using a Firefox, of course, if you are using the Kali Linux, you'll be using Firefox. Open inspect element. Under inspect element, go to memory. So let me just press F5 for it to bring, go to storage. It's not memory, it's under storage. You can see now UID. UID means 1. User identification. And it's saying that it is 1. And username is admin. From here now, I can begin to control to change the account. Currently, I'm logging in as admin. As you can see here, admin. Now, let me change this number to 2. And press F5 again. I'm still logging as admin. Now, let me change it to 10 and press enter. After changing it to 10, press enter and press F5. Let's see. As you can see, I've logged in as another user, DrevView. You can see DrevView. So I've been able to use SQL injection, right, to bypass the authentication login or even log in as another user, right? Let me log out again and do that afresh for the sake of clarity. So it is not only in this particular place that you can insert, what is it called? the payload. As I've said earlier, this is the payload. This is a GitHub page, right? You can search for that, the payload, SQL payload on your browser. But let me still go back. So yeah, I can actually do. Let me paste the command here and just type any password, give any password. You will see that I'll be logging as admin. You can see I got login as an admin without incorrect username and without incorrect password. Why is that? It's because this particular application is vulnerable. It's vulnerable to SQL injection. That is why we are able to log in. So as we're going to see next, we are going to be using this particular vulnerability to dump the database, to dump the information that is on the database. Now, you can see that for the sake of security, the security level is on 0, right? Sorry, it's on 1 actually. Let me see. Yes, security level is 0. Let me toggle the security. Now it's on the security level is on 1, right? So I'm still going to use the same payload and see whether it's going to work. Because as I've said, this particular web server was deliberately made for educational purpose and for practicing, right? So it has to be, there are some level you can increase to whether you want the security to be hard or you want it to be low. So let me go back now. Let me log out first. So let me try again with that payload that I was using, which is q, comma, or 1 equal to 1. So let me try and log in with that, whether it's going to work. As you can see, it's saying dangerous character detected. We can't allow this. This is all powerful blacklist. So there's something they call WAF, Web Application Firewall, right? That is one of the security control that is being implemented to prevent SQL injection. All right. So in this case, you can see that blacklist means they are blacklisting the particular character. This particular character I'm inserting. They are disallowing it from running, right? So let me do that again. So how do you know? Of course, as an hacker, you don't have to give up at this particular point in time. There are ways by which you can bypass this, right? So for you to know whether the security control is being implemented on the client side or the server side, we don't know. We must first of all know whether the security control is being implemented on the client side or the server side. So for me to do that, I'm going to fire up my Bob suit, which I have done already. You know, in our last session, I talked briefly about it. And I know that, as I said, you know, I'm going to, as I said in that particular session, I said we need to download the Bob suit from the website, not the one that was pre-installed. If I type up suit here now, you will see this particular one is the one that came pre-installed with Kali Linux. But this is the one that I am using now. This is the one that you must use too. And I know that I haven't walk you through how to do that. Maybe by after this session, I may find a video on YouTube and send you to that, how you can get it install the certificate so that your web traffic can be intercepted by Bob suit. So let me go back now. Let me just assume that we've done it and let me go back. So let me go back to that. Since we don't know what is making this thing to filter whether it is on the client side or on the server side, right? So let me go back now. So what I'm going to do here now is do it again. So you can see, I don't know. So I'm going to turn my intercept on. Let me go back to Bob suit and turn my procced, under procced intercept. I'm going to turn it on and go back and try to log in. So you can see that if he's not sending the traffic at all, that means the security control is being implemented on this particular server side, right? If I log in again now, you see that he's not sending it at all. Of course, there are ways we can bypass this, which is to first of all give the corrected information. For example, let me for you to know that, so that I won't be I want to bring it down to your level. I'm going to first of all remove the hash pound and log in again. You can see that it's still complaining, right? Let me remove this what is it called, that single quote, and log in again. You can see that it's still complaining. Why is it still complaining? It's because it's filtering, it's blocking some letters or numbers. So let me type 1 again and see. You can see it's still blocking 1. But let me now use cyber as my password and log in. Now that means you can see that my Bob suit has been successfully intercepted the traffic, right? As you can see. So that means the security control was being implemented on the client side, on the browser, right? So I've been able to intercept the traffic. From here now, what I can do as an hacker, I can actually bring back what's it called? The payload I was trying before that it was being blocked. I can insert it here. Now that is exactly what I'm going to do. You can see under username, if you can see here, username, instead of using cyber, because this traffic, as I said earlier, this traffic is not yet reached the server. It is being tracked by my Bob suit, right? From here now I can manipulate the expected payload that the server is expecting. From here, I'm just going to insert. Sorry, let me go back. This is not what I want. From here now, what I'm going to do now, let me go back to my notepad and copy this particular payload, right? Copy. So what I'm going to do, or I can just type it here, as you can see, or 1 equal to 1, right? As you can see, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to forward this particular traffic. As I forward, let me go back to my web browser. You can see that it's still complaining, right? It's still giving an error that something is not wrong, something is wrong here. You can see select everything from account where username equal to this. The reason why it's complaining is because I forgot to put the pound, the hash symbol. That is why it's complaining. So quickly, I'm going to rerun this particular. Let me put off my intercept proxy and let me log in again. I'm going to use cyber and just a letter. And before doing that, let me put on my intercept. Sorry. So I've been able to trap the traffic. So I'm going to do, or I'm going to still use the same particular payload that I was using, or 1 equal to 1, and then put that hash pound and forward it. You will see that we will be logging as an admin. He's still complaining. Why is he still complaining? Let's see. Let's try and see what is select everything from accounts. Where username, right? Where username. The reason why he's complaining is because we didn't actually insert something here. You see that these two quotes is being empty, right? So everything after this pound dash will not run. So the query is not actually confirming whether our password is correct or not. But what it must first establish is that this username must be correct. And in this case, I forgot to put the letter. So I'm going to do it again, right? You can see that I'm being deliberate in making mistakes here so that you can see, the errors and how to go about it. So I'm going to type cyber again and type Q as my password and log in. And it is being intercepted by my proxy. So I'm going to do a comma or 1 equal 1, and 1 equal 1 will always be true, right? So let me forward that traffic again. So it's still giving an error. It's still giving an error. So why is that? Let's try to see. You can see that it is expecting a space to be here. Let me copy this out so that we can see. This particular place, there ought to be a space like this, right? And this particular place, there ought to be a space because you can see from here, right? So let me do that again now. Let me go back to it, and my intercept is on. I'm going to log in again, cyber and Q and anything at all. So from here now, for me to get that right, I'm going to go to decoder. I'm first of all going to type a comma or 1 equal 1. So let me encode this. You may not understand this, but I want to encode it as a URL. Let me see whether that is going to work. Control C. So let me go back to my proxy. Instead of using this cyber, I'm going to just insert that particular payload and forward it. Let's see what it's going to give us. Let me forward this to. So I've been able to log in as an admin. As you can see, I've logged in as an administrator, right? Using this part, let me go back to Bob suit. Using this decoder. What this actually does is that you can see it's the same payload, but it encodes it to a URL. Let me decode it back to plain text now. You will see this is the plain text here. So by the reason of that, I've been able to bypass the authentication. Now, let me go back to my slide and look at what's next on our agenda. So we've been able to bypass login authentication using SQL injection. Our next agenda is how to dump database, right? So you have to sit up here. We are going to be looking at using SQL vulnerability to dump database data or database information like the one we saw earlier. How we use union select to select the test and the test2 together, because on this particular database too, there are a lot of tables on it. So let me go back now. Right, so to do that, I'm going to toggle this security to let me off my proxy. Let me put my proxy off. Hold on, please. Wow, 1 hour 15 minutes already. So I have to make this part short so that I do not want this video to be that long. So all right. So let me go back now. So we can explore that OWASP. Let me toggle to the security is to level 0. Is in level, the security level is 0 now. So WASP 10 under injection, we've dealt about bypass authentication, and here we are going to be looking at extract data, right? Extract data. That is you will click on user info. That is where we'll be working upon now. So now I'm currently logging as an admin. Let me log out. As you can see from here, now I've logged out as an administrator account. So what I'm going to do now is to log in as my account, the account that I created earlier, which is cyber, and password is 12345, and log in. Now it's working. Expected, it's happy that we actually insert the correct expected data. So it should not be this. It should be under SQL extract data, user info. The one we are to be practicing with is under extract data, under injection, extract data, under extract data, user info. Click on this user info. So I'm going to first of all, let me log out. So I'm going to log in cyber and 12345. So now, what I'm going to do here now is to log out. Now, it worked as expected because we provided the right credentials, the right username and password. But now let me log out and use the SQL we've been using before. This is the payload we've been using. This particular one, this Q or 1 equal to 1, right? Let me use that again. Copy, go back, and just type any password. And let's see whether it's going to bypass login. So it's still bypassing, right? But at this point in time, we don't want that. We want to we'll be using union select, right? We'll be using union. Let me reiterate that again. We saw earlier in SQL crash course how we use union to combine a set of databases or data tables together. So from here we'll be using union select to do this particular session. So what I'm going to do here now is, instead of saying Q or 1 equal to 1, I will say union select, right? Union select. Let me log out again. I will say Q or, let me first of all write the command here so that it can be clear. Let me copy this. Copy and put it under this. So I will say union, Control V, union, no, union, select one, select, because we don't know the, now, you know, when we are practicing with SQL crash course, we don't know the, what is it called, the number of tables, we don't know the numbers of columns that is there, right? Under guessing, we are just guessing one, you know, we are just, you know, we are just guessing, right? So the same also method we are going to apply it. We are just going to say union select one, because we don't know, we are going to first of all start with one. From uh, uh, after that, we're just going to do, instead of using this particular or 1 equal to 1, we are just going to put the hash pound here. Now let's try this first of all and see what's going to give. So let me paste that in here and type any password. Now let's deduce from there. It says select from account where username is. So it's saying that error executing query, the use select statement have a different number of columns. Can you see? It's the same error we got from when we are doing SQL crash course. The use select call statement have a different number of columns. So how are we able to deal with that? Is to just be trying, you know, increasing this particular select one. I'm going to put comma and put another one, you know, till we. So this is what I'm going to be doing repeatedly. It's still complaining, but in the real world web penetration testing, you won't be getting all this error, right? As I've said earlier, you will just have to be using your intuitive to deduce whether there is an SQL vulnerability in that particular form or in that particular parameter you are testing. In case you don't know what form means, this is what they call form. This particular space where you insert name, value for names and password. It is also known as parameter. So you can see that I still complain that the use select statement have a different number of columns. So I'm just going to increase that number again. Instead of saying 1 now, I'm going to say comma 1, comma 1. Excuse me, please. Control C. Union select 1. So I think on password we can't, it has a limit. On name rather, it has a limit. That's why it's not proceeding than this. What I'm going to do, hold on please. I don't think this is where it ought. Let me go back to that. Let me refresh this page particularly. It should not be, we are to extract data. It should not be displaying for the one for authentication. Let me go back multi-day and under OWASP top 10 injection, under on injection, extract data and user info. User info is still okay. So cyber 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can see it wasn't working as expected before. You can see now it's displaying username and cyber, password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, signature 1, cyber green, right? You can see. So this is what I was expecting it to do earlier. So I'm going to put the command back, and here now I'm just going to put another, you know, we are guessing. I'm just going to put the pound and put anything as password and view account details. Now it's still complaining that the use select statement have a different number. You have to be trying this till, you know, I'm going to add another 1, sorry, 1, comma 1, comma 1. So yeah, now we are saying union select table 1, column 2, because we don't know the number of columns, right? That is in that particular database. That is why we are guessing. So I'm just going to use any password here and view accounts. So it's still complaining actually, right? He's saying the use select statement have a different number of columns. So let's try for the last time and see. I'm going to increase it to 5. 1, 2. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let me now press use any password and use view account details. Now You can see it's giving us different information. That is to show that that particular database has a columns of 5 columns. Right, we've been able to deduce that you can see that it's not outputting that error as before. You can see. So he's saying there, yeah, username is 1, password is 1. Of course, this is not it. This is not what we are looking for. We are just using it to to test whether there is a to test the presence of SQL vulnerability. And from this, we could know that yes, there is a SQL vulnerability on this server. And as an attacker, you can proceed to dig down the hole, to go down the hole and bring out valuable information. And that is what we are going to do. So at this point, there is something they call information schema. Let me open my Google. Let me open my browser so that you can see what that means. There's something they call information schema, right? Information schema. So what does, in simple terms, what it means is that whenever in any database like MySQL, Oracle, all the database, there is an information schema. Let me open Google so that you can see what it's all about. So from here, information schema provides access to database metadata, information about the MySQL server, such as the name of the database or table, the data type, and so on and so forth. That is the basic what it means. It comes pre-installed. It's just it as a function, right? That came pre-installed on any database. For example, in this case, MySQL, right? And metadata means information about data, information about data. Yes, that is what metadata means. So we are going to be using this information schema because at this point in time, what we are seeing here doesn't make any sense. Right, we've been able to detect that there's a presence of SQL vulnerability in this particular web server, but we can't be, for we to do that, as I said, we are going to be using information schema instead of using 11111. In information schema, there's what they call database, a function known as database function. I'm going to put that in that particular, instead of using 1 year 2, I will use a version of database that is being used. And at the same time, I'm going to, the last one, I'm going to put user, right? You can see, let me copy out this code so that I can, for easier analysis. So let me put it here. This is the code I'm inserting. So you can see here now, union select database. As I've said, database is part of the information schema, is a function, right? That will give us the data information about the database that is being used. The version, of course, will give us the version and the user that is running on that particular database. So that is using that particular database rather. So I'm just going to use any password here and click on it. You can see now under username, don't mind all this because we are trying to get the information back on this particular. So as you can see, the database that is being used is the user. Let me go back. The first one is database, right? The database that is being used is this particular one. No, this is the version that is being used. This is the version that is being used, and this is the root. The user that is running. I'm running the user that is running. Which, if you go back to this Metasploitable tool, if you type who am I, MSF admin, right? MSF admin is running as root. In other words, running as a privileged user, right? So that is what the user that is being used on that particular machine is. And under signature, the signature is 1. So we've been able to see here that, the database that is being used. Of course, we know that, what is it called? The version of the database is OWASP 10. Let me go back to that command. I think it should display that here too. Version, database version, yes, and user. This one here. Let me run it again. So You can see, let me paste the command back, version, database, this database, version, the version that is being used, and user. So let me view accounts. So what we are going to do next now is to use the information schema, as I've said earlier, to get this information, to go down the rabbit hole and get to dump the database information we are going to be using. So I'm going to type a new command. Let me go back to my notepad. Sorry. So instead of using database, version, user, and version and user, of course we know that the database that is running is OWASP top 10. So of course, don't let me bypass that, but let me still hold that. I'm going to show you how we're going to detect that. So let me copy this particular command and paste it here. So instead of saying, as I've said, there's information schema, I'm going to say table name. We have to first of all know the table. You know, when we in SQL injection crash course we did, we first of all create the table name, right? So in this case, we want to display the tables. Of course, they are not in that SQL we did. You know, we could be able to, we met one table name called demo, and we actually created our own, which is test and test 2 that we created, right? So that's it, to show you that in a database we could have thousands of table names, right? So in this case also we have, you know, in hundreds. So we are going to scroll down to particular one we are be looking at. So I would say union select table name, right? And we've been able to know that the number of column there is 5. So I'm going to still leave this version. I'm going to cut out the version and put 1. I don't need the version again, and I don't need the user again. So I'm going to put that, get rid of that, and I'm going to say union select table name, table names. It should be names, table names from information information schema. So we are going to reduce that, because when we just type it, we bring out for the sake of time, we are going to just reduce our filtering to tables dot, which is dot tables, right? So let me copy this and run this command. So we are getting an error. It's saying errors on no column table names in the field list. So it should be table name. Let me go back to that. Copy this again. So now you can see it's actually not displaying it. So what I'm going to do now is to change the location of where I put the table name, so that we can see all the table names that are currently on this particular. So I'm going to cut this and put 1 there. Let me put it into this particular session. So let me copy this again. As you can see before, it's just displaying 1, right? But we want it to display tangible information. So as you can see, these are the table names we have. You know, don't mind, it is being printing out under password, right? Don't mind that it is the table notes we are printing on is, you can see we have character sets, collations, columns. If you scroll down, you will schema, routines, profiling. We have tables, table privilege triggers, users. You can see we have users, the users that are running on the current web app. A lot of, you can see we have credit cards. That is where we are going to particularly. That's you know, we are going to dump all the credit cards that is being stored on this website, right? For example, if you buy something on Gigi and you insert your credit card, right? What is it called? Your debit, whether it is your, you know, on this side of the world we use debit card, not credit card, right? Whether it is your debit card all the 14 or 15 digits that is being demanded, and the CVV numbers, all those things, they have been stored on database, and it's the same thing we are trying to do here. You know, if an attacker should get hold, if gg.com now, if they are not security conscious company, right, and if they are careless about their users data, their users information, such thing like this could happen. And now you just imagine the impact of that. Maybe an attacker gets hold of your credentials, your credit, your debit card numbers, either credit or debit card numbers, your CVV. I can, with that alone, I have owned the key to the kingdom. I can be able to buy anything on the internet with your card, you know. So we are going to do the same thing here. That's where we are going to actually. So our next agenda is to screw down our filtering command here. So you can see we are able to detect, as I've said earlier, you know, the version or the table names, the database that is running is OWASP, right? So we are going to scroll down to that OWASP. I will say, so from here now, let me put the command below it so that we can, from union selectable name, from information schema dot tables, where table table name equal to OWASP 10, right? So what are we trying to do here? You know, we've been able to get the table name, and we know that what is it called? The database that we are targeting is OWASP 10. So in this case, we are filtering, it's as if we are, you know, limiting our focus to that particular database. So let me copy this and run it. Excuse me, please. All right, so let me go back. Let me copy this. Wow, we are indeed, you can see I'm getting an error here. It's a bad username or password. That means something is not right with our command. Select, select table name from information schema dot tables, where table schema. Okay, I think it should be table schema. You know, you can learn more about that on your own to further gain clarity. But just be following the command I'm typing here. So now, where table schemas dot OWASP. So it's giving us all the data that are on OWASP. You can see we have credit cards, we have accounts, block data, blocks table, captured data, credit cards, each log, pen test tools. Our focus, as I said, is this credit card. This is where we are going to focus on. So let me go back now, and let me go back to my notepad. So let me copy another one. So the next command is, since we've gotten the table name, we have to scroll down to, which is credit cards. So union select table name from information schema dot table, where table schema is called to OWASP top 10. Hold on, please. I think. All right. All right. So OWASP union selects table name from information schema dot tables, where table schema is equal to OWASP 10. So we won't be running this particular command again. So what we are going to be doing, where columns. So as you can see, let me go back to that output. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think what we'll be sorting on now is columns, right? Sorry. We'll be sorting on columns, not table names again. So column name, I'm going to change this. Column column name from information schema dot, it should not be dot, columns. I think I get this, columns. Okay, and columns where table, where column name, where column equal to credit cards. Credit cards. Let me check that column whether there is X. Okay, credit cards. So let me copy this command and run it. So we are getting an error. What is the error there? So let me go back. So we've been able to say select column name from, yes, from information schema dot columns where column name equal credit cards. It's not even showing us whether it's an error, but it's just saying that it simply means that the command we are inserting is not right. So let me do that. Let me go back to it. So it should be, we've been able to get the column names for WASP top 10. Select table name, okay, from information schema dot, sorry, I think this should be still be table, from information schema dot columns, yeah, where column name, hold on please, where column name equal credit cards. Let me try it like this way. So that is it. In hacking, you just have to, try. It demands a lot of patience, right, and persistence. Actually, you can see error executing on no column table in the feed list. We are still getting an error here. So let me go back. I think somebody wants to, hold on please. Okay, no one is requesting access to join. So let me go back to that. So it should be table name, I think. Sorry, let me cancel this. Column name, where table name. Table name, okay. Copy. Let me go back now. We are still getting an error. Let me, I don't know if I'm still, okay. I'm still showing, all right. So let me go back to, let's see how we can resolve that. So where table name is, the error is outputting here is error executing query on no column table in the field list. So sorry, it's actually saying that the column name we are specifying is unknown. So table name is credit cards. Column name from information schema. Information schema dot columns. I think I'm misspelling column. Is it columns. Yes, it's correct. Union select column table. Union select column table from information schema dot columns where table name is equal to credit cards. All right. What I'm going to do now is all right, let me try this command again. Copy. It's giving us error. Hold on, please. Should be column name. Oh, sorry. I'm making a mistake here. It should be column name, not column table. So let me try it again now. Now we've gotten it. So sorry guys, I was making a mistake here. Instead of column name, I was doing column table. So we can see union select column name from information schema dot columns where table name equals to credit cards. So let me go back to my you can see now we have CCID. It's been able to bring out the output. Let me type the command again so you can see. So I just copied the command from my notepad here, and I'm view account details. You can see we have under username we have one CCID. So those are the column names. We have CCID, we have CC number, we have CCV and expiration date. So I'm just going to select CC number, CCV and expiration. So then we will be able to see all the data, right? So the command I'm to use is, let me copy this and paste this again. So as you can see, I'm going to type, instead of using column name now, I'm going to remove that. We don't need that again. CCV first. The next information we are trying to dump is expiration. Let me check. CCV, CC number, credit card number. Oh no, sorry for this. So let me credit card number. I don't know why my keyboard is credit card number, and let me check the last one. Credit card number and expiration number. So I'm going to put that here in the fourth expiration. I don't know why this keyboard is pressing by itself. Expiration. So you can see that this is the command we'll be using to dump all the information by to see the plain text of the CCV number, yes, the credit card number and the expiration number. So the command is union select. We've been able to know that the number of columns is 5, right? So from information schema dot columns where table name. So we don't need from information schema. We are just going to say from select all these from credit cards, right? So I'm going to remove all of these from credit cards. So let me copy this and try and see what's going to give to us. Control V. Now you can see, guys, we've been able to deduce. This is the credit card number, right? This is the credit card number. This is the CCV number, credit card number, CCV number. So at the position we are putting the expiration number, that is why it's not showing here. CCV number, credit card number. So don't mind it displaying under username, password, and signature. What I'm going to do now is go back and put the expiration number properly at where it will show. Control, I will just cut it off and put it here. And put the last one here. So I'm going to copy this again. So you can see we've been able to dump the database on this particular web server. We've hacked into it using SQL injection. We've saw how to, as you can see before, this is the expiration number. This card ought to expire on 2012. You can see this is CCV number and this is the credit card number. With this now, what can an attacker do? Right? Is either he sells this particular information on dark web, something known as dark web, right? Where an hacker is on dark web. I won't explain that. You can search Google. He gather all this information and sell it on dark web, or use it by himself rather, him or herself, for financial gain. So you can see how dangerous it is for an organization not to be security conscious, how dangerous it is for an organization to expose the information of their clients to the world without proper security put in place. So as I've said earlier, in world today, in most of the application out there, this kind of vulnerability are still present. It's just for you to stay persistent. It's just for you can see how many the time it takes for me to figure out the right command to use. It's just for you to stay persistent and keep on digging, right? So of course, the security aspect of it, as I've said earlier, is the use of WAF, web application firewall, right? Most of the application out there today, they now use something like WAF. We talked about firewall in our preceding session, right? And one of the firewall they use in safeguarding such attack as this on the web application is known as web application firewall. They use load balancing, all those security technical security controls. So by this, we've been able to see how you can bypass any authentication login using SQLi, SQL injection. We've also saw how to dump a database, organization database by using vulnerability in SQL, MySQL database, using SQL injection vulnerability. So by this, I think we've done with today's session. Let me go back to my agenda and see what next on it. So we've okay, SQL map. All right. The last aspect we'll be looking at is the SQL map. You can see that, as I said earlier, before we start the lecture, the time it takes to manually hunt for this kind of vulnerability, right? But of course, as a web penetration tester or an ethical hacker, you have to save time. You can't sit forever with an application trying to figure out how to break into it. Thankfully, community has made a tool to help us automate this particular issue, in which I'm going to be, before I introduce it to you on my Kali Linux, let me open my web browser and search it on Google so that you can see what it stands for. SQL map is known as SQL map. So as you can see here, let me go to their GitHub page. Okay, this is their, let me still come here to, this is their website. You can see SQL map is an open source penetration testing tool that automates the process of detecting and exploiting SQL injection flaws and taking over of database servers, That is the purpose of SQL map. So I'm going to give a brief intro on how it is being used. So I'm going to go back to my attacker machine now, which is Kali Linux. We are done with this. What you just need to do is let me open it first. This is my interface. What is it called? My terminal. So I'm going to open up SQL map, right? SQL map. So as you can see, okay, before doing that, let me go back in case you don't have it on your, sometimes I don't think it is pre-installed with Kali Linux, but if you want to install it on your Kali Linux machine, just type SQL map GitHub. You can see GitHub. So I will show you quickly how to get it installed on your Kali Linux machine. So you will come to this website. This is their GitHub site. So this is where you will get the tool from. So you will just click on code, right? You will copy, as you see under HTTP, this particular code, you will copy it and go back to your Kali Linux. So what I'm going to do, the command to install it, because I have it installed already on my own system, I'm just going to show you briefly the command you can use to install it, or you can follow that particular that particular page to see how to install it. But for let me still show you. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to first of all change directly to OPT. Sorry guys, I don't know why my keyboard is long pressing on itself by itself rather. So I'm going to OPT. So this is where the command to use to install it. I don't know if you can see my screen. So let me zoom in. So what I'm going to do here is type git clone, and the command you copied from that particular web interface, just paste it here. To paste it is either you press right click and paste clipboard. So as you can see, what I'm going to do here is just press enter. Oh no. So sorry guys. Let me clear this screen now. My keyboard is just long pressing on itself. I don't know what is wrong with it. Let me clear the screen first. So let me bring up the command I was using last. Git clone. Can you see it? Git clone. So you can see that it's not actually working, right? But what you are going to do now, for the sake of time, I would like you to go to that web page, this particular web page. Let me show you how to get it installed. You can see usage, right? The installation process. You can download the latest binary from here, or you can follow. You can just type this particular command rather. You see, so git clone. If I should copy this again and go back to my Kali Linux machine, let me control E. What I'm going to do is paste this command. So you can see. So it's saying permission needed. That is the aspect I want to show you. Permission denied rather. So for you to install it on your system, I don't know. Yes, for you to install it, you need a super user, which is known as privileged user. So you just type sudo, right? This is the command to type. Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. This keyboard is just, I have to open terminal again. So I'm going to open another terminal here, open terminal. So this is the command you will type sudo. Oh no. So this is the command you will type sudo. And the command, particular, so once you type this, it will ask you for password. So you just insert your password and you will get that installed, right? So you can follow the web instruction on how to install it. So I'm going to control out of this and quickly show us how SQL works. So I have it installed in different, what is it called, in different directories. So I'm going to search for it. The where is command, what it stands for is it will actually list out wherever the I'm searching for SQL map now. It will actually list out every directory that SQL map belongs to. So where I have installed it is under etc SQL map. So I'm going to quickly sudo into that. Sorry, change directory into that. Pardon. Let's see SQL map ls. I'm going to ls. Okay, I don't know, it's not here. So I think it's in user share school map. So I'm going to cd back into user here SQL map. So ls. So you can see this is a Python file actually. If you know Python programming language, it is something you can read. If you know about Python, it's the program is written in Python. So it needs Python, and as you know, for you to run Python file, you have to run it through a Python programming language. So what I'm going to do here, first of all, I'm going to clear the screen, right? Let me zoom in so you can see my screen well. So I'm going to ls again. I'm going to use Python. You can use Python 3 or 2, anyone. But in this case, I'll be using Python 3 and to run it, .py and -h command, which is stand for help page. So it's loading. So it will display all the necessary parameter we need to give for it to run. But while that is running, what I want to do now is, since we know that this particular parameter is vulnerable to SQL injection, right? What we can just do is let me first of all type as give the right expected input that the server is expecting from us, and type this, and let me just click on view account details. Of course, that is a wrong credentials, but the purpose of doing this is to test to get this parameter, this particular link that you can see before you. So I will just copy that link. It is the link that I will input into SQL map. You can see this is the head page of SQL map, and let me quickly scroll up to see. You can see SQL map, the -h that I use show basic help message and exit. So what I'm going to do, the basic command that I'm going to be using here is -u. As you can see here, it's saying that URL, the target URL to use, right? So that is what I'll be using. I'm just giving us a brief intro into SQL map. So I will bring that up again and put -u. Oh no. Sorry guys, I don't know why this thing is. So you have to, the command you copied or the link you copied from the web browser, it must be in quoted format, as you can see before you now. So let me paste this. So let me run it now. Oh. Sorry guys, I may have to do this again because this thing. Sorry guys, for I don't know, my screen keyboard is just long pressing on itself. As you can see, I'm going to explain briefly what the tool is doing. As it was defined on the web on the organization website, it actually automates the process of manually finding the SQL injection. Also you can know that a parameter, once you've been able to deduce that a parameter is vulnerable to so and so SQL injection, you can just copy as I copied earlier and insert it into this tool, and it will do the bulk, the work of detecting the vulnerability, and also what is it called, exploiting the vulnerability. So you can see it's actually working now. But I want to show you, detect that it was testing for the database that was being used. You know, as I said earlier, we have Oracle, we have MySQL, but in this particular one, it is MySQL. You know, so it is recommended to perform only basic testing. There is no. So this is the function of the tool. So let me. I think it's still running. It's still running. Yes. You can see SQL map identify the following injection points with a total of 143 HTTP requests. So it has identified a parameter. Injection point means a parameter or a query, you know, as I've said earlier, a form. Let me go back again. This is what they call injection point, like this particular tab now, where the server expects you to insert your username. That is an injection point, right? So it has identified. You can see the total of injection points it identified 1,143. So let me scroll down. So it has been able to discover that the type of MySQL database that is being used is MySQL, as you can see from here. So the payload is generating the payload now, as you can see the payload, and it's inserting it into this particular where I was inserting cyber, right? So it's doing the work currently. So let me scroll down again. Let me go back. So it has been able to give us. Sorry, let me zoom out. Let me zoom out my screen. Zoom in rather. So this is it. For the sake of easier access, it has been able to save those payload it got or that is vulnerable to this particular directory. If I should go to this particular directory, now I will list them out. Let me copy this directory and let me split my. So I will just paste that directory in here. What I'm going to do here is to cut, to cd into it. CD means chain directory. So I'm going to list the content under that directory, the current directory now. So as you can see, target.txt session.sqlite log. So I want to end this particular session now because it has taken so much time. But let me go back to the former. You can see I split my terminal. This particular one, that one is not part of the upper one. So let me go back to the upper one and try to see whether I can, you know, explain something about this. So he's trying to give us the payload that we can use actually, right? So these are the payload. You can see payload that it gave to us. If you copy this payload now and insert it to that particular place, you will see that it's vulnerable. Payload on this particular page and row counts. So these are the particular payload it was able to detect for us, generated for us. So that is the basic of SQL map. You know, and if you want to learn more about it, there are free resources on the internet. Just search SQL map on the internet on Google. You know, you can watch video, YouTube video on it about it. So for you to have basic more understanding of how the tool works and the rest. So thank you so much. I think we've been able to achieve today's agenda. We've looked at how to bypass login authentication using SQL injection. We've been able to dump the data, credential data, the CCV number, the CCV, the credit card numbers, and the rest. And we've looked at SQL map briefly. So for further reading and references, I'll be sending this to us, right? I will send this particular manuscript to us, so you know, so that you can just include some of the resources that can be of valuable to you. You know, if you care to read further, and I actually advise you read further and study further on this for you to have a proper understanding and question and answer. You know, so if you have any question, you can get back to me on Discord server or the WhatsApp channel. So feel free to get back to me if you have any challenges, question about this particular session. So thank you so much. We've come to to the end. We've come to the end of today's session, and I hope that we've been able to learn one or two things. And as I've said, if you are being challenged with anything that is not yet clear, or something that anything relating to what we've been doing thus far from session 1, either session 1, session 2, up to session 5, feel free to get back on the Discord server and or the WhatsApp group. Thank you so much, and God bless.